it's 100% trollish behavior because it's completely off topic. Like,
Yeah.
okay, somebody had an accident, you don't know why. All you do is see the cars, but you're like, I bet they were on their phone. I bet you they were
Oh, I bet they
distracted.
were drinking.
I
Look,
bet
he's
they were
driving a
drinking, and it's only
Ford.
3 in the afternoon, and all that stuff. And it's just trollish comments, filled with trollish comments by people who have nothing else to do.
Welcome to Pros Talking Prose. Today, I am going to do something kind of fun. I have not warned Troy. This is going to be kind of like an impromptu, like, this is what we're going to talk about, because I thought it would be really fun to kind of like just get off the cuff, real live reactions from he and I on the way we handle this particular thing. And it really kind of, it's not going to just be, I think it'll really relate to every author who's ever written anything anywhere, because I think this is one of the biggest fears that authors have once they publish. And it's also something that we all kind of subconsciously all just cringe at. So here we go. It's going to be, I don't know how I'm going to title this yet, but it's going to be, let's talk about trolls, hate mail, fan mail, weird DMs,
Oh,
things that come at us from the side that sometimes will knock us off our bearings a little bit and make us a little bit uncertain about going forward in our life. So
oh,
I know a lot of authors that come to me and they'll get like a negative review, or they'll get like a beta reader that comes back and they're like, oh, they hated it and I don't know what I did wrong, or I don't want to fix that but they told me to fix that. Or just like recently when I personally had to write a manuscript review that I was like praying that the author would not get upset about, because there was
mm,
a lot of work that needed to be done in the manuscript. But at the same time, I really, really loved the manuscript, premise as a whole, and that I'm hoping that she pursues and continues to work with it. So it's just kind of one of those things where I want to talk about, like, how do we manage the negativity that kind of comes into our life sometimes, not just from our own heads, but from the outside world that may hate on what we do.
oh,
So,
man, this is a tough one,
oh
and
no,
the
it's fun.
it is fun because the reason part of this is something that I tell young authors all the time is get used to negative feedback. And
Right.
the problem is that it's very easy to say. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's very easy to say, get used to negative feedback, and that you're always going to have some kind of negative feedback as a writer, and it's just going to go on forever. And you can do, like, there's people who will just say, well, turn that around to being a positive, but you can't always do that when someone says, this is literal trash. Like, um, and then on the editor side of things, the toughest thing is, like, some people say, well, say something positive about the manuscript first. Sure. Yeah, I can usually pick out something positive, but sometimes the only positive thing is about a paragraph in 20 pages of this really needs a lot of help. But
Mm-hmm.
from the editor's side, what authors have to understand is our real goal is to help them, right? So we're giving them what feels like negative feedback so they don't get negative feedback from other people later. And we actually, if I don't care that much about your book, I'll give you a really short little manuscript review that says, hey, man, go back to the drawing board. This is a terrible first draft. Have a nice day. If I give you 15 pages of feedback, what it means is, I love your idea. You need some help executing it, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
more feedback I give you, the more it means I like your book.
Right.
That is not true of reviewers and trolls sometimes, though.
Mm-mm.
Like, it
No.
is not. And in the age of AI and all that kind of
Oh
stuff,
my
you're
gosh, yeah.
seeing this more and more out there. Like, if you even say you use AI or admit that you use AI to help you with planning or anything, people go nuts, and it's a ridiculous level of ick that's
Yeah.
happening, right? But
Yeah.
anyway, so yeah, so I mean, I guess the way to tackle this first is to just say, first of all, negative feedback is going to come, and
Right.
as easy as that is to say, that has nothing to do with how you're going to handle it, but other than to say that it is going to come, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
I'm gonna open up and share some of my negative feedback that I've gotten. I'm also willing to share this kind of, it sounds horrible, but I'm going to share some negative feedback that some of my authors have gotten and how they have handled it and how we've handled it together as a team. The first one I will say it came from a really sweet author that wrote his first book when he and published it before he hit the age of 17, I believe. I think he really wanted to,
Mm.
so he made sure he published it before he hit his 17th birthday. I think that was the thing. It was his goal. He really wanted to publish something when he was 16. So we made it happen. Now that's not to say we didn't work hard on the dang thing. He'd written a magnificent story, and he for a 16-year-old, it was fabulous. The writing and editing was as thorough as we could possibly have done it to get that deadline done. And he got some pretty good reviews for that first book. One of the negative reviews he got, what he was devastated, and I think it was a 3 star, so it wasn't even like a 1 star, it was a 3 star. And it was so funny because he called me up and he says, I can't believe I got a 3 star review. And I said,
Mm.
okay,
Huh.
what was it? And he said it said that there was too much violence for their taste. And I started laughing and I said, okay, that's not a bad review, really. And I said, but okay. And he says it was from my grandma.
Oh, oh,
And I started laughing and I said, okay,
oh.
couple things. First of all, why, grandma? Why you gotta do that, right?
Yeah,
The
why,
second,
Grandma? Why you got to
why,
play that,
why
Grandma?
you gotta play
Hate,
that? Why
hate the
you gotta,
game, not the
what?
player.
Yeah, why you
And
gotta
you
be the
know,
troll, grandma? But no, but the funny thing was that I told him, I said, actually, that's a kind of a cool review. And I said the reason is
Mhm.
because if you're marketing a book that is more violent, more edgy than others, and you have readers that are looking for that, they're going to see that review and think, oh well, how edgy is this? And they're going to buy it because they're going to think that maybe it borders on
Mhm.
that line that they like to touch on. So don't be afraid of bad reviews, for that reason. If they're giving feedback, thank them for the feedback, because a lot of times it could probably play to the other side of that. It also helps the
Mhm.
algorithm maybe place you in a better place, um, and help those readers that are looking for something like that find you. Um, but
Mhm.
another good example that I'm going to tell you, not from personal experience, but it has to do with negative feedback, and it was from Michael Brent Collings. And I remember one time, I hope I'm quoting him correctly here, or a little, I'm not going to quote him exactly, but I'm going to paraphrase. I think he basically said that he got a 1 star review. It said something pretty nasty. And he said that he thanks those reviewers because they've taken time out of their day to spend
Yes.
time, and if, especially if they've actually read your book, they've read your book and they're giving you feedback, and it's really kind of flattering that they've actually spent the time to write that review instead of just going, well, this was crap, and just chuck it out the window. That giving you that
Hmm.
feedback is something that you should probably be, I know, very difficult to do, but grateful for. So have you ever gotten a
Yeah.
negative review that you're like, oh, and then you're like,
Um,
wait a minute, this isn't so bad?
yeah, I mean, I've gotten some that are almost humorous, but I mean, first of all, one of the things to realize is that when you get a review like that, first of all, like saying something's too violent or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or somebody so I got a 3 star review. It's one of my favorite ones on Stray Ally that says, um, good story, but bad language.
A
I mean, obviously,
languish.
Obviously the person meant language, but they put bad language. I'm like, I will try to not languish with my next book. Or only good language, not bad language.
I won't languish
However,
too long.
however, I mean, in some way, like, okay, so that one's kind of funny, but the thing about that is, even if they had put bad language, the point is that's personal taste, right? Just
Right,
like the
right,
one saying it's too violent. That's
right.
personal taste. Well, you picked up the book. First of all, Grandma, ease up, right? It's your grandson.
For
So if he wrote
16
something
years
that's too,
old.
because look, my mom did not like especially my first couple of books. My brother does not like them,
Right.
right? For the most part, they don't like them. They would like me to write something more wholesome, and they're not quite, they're not in their lane. Well,
Couldn't
okay,
you
but they
write a
don't go and
Fanny?
leave bad reviews,
Can't
because
you write a Fanny Bragg? Gosh, what's the matter with you?
yeah, exactly. I mean, and I mean, the other aspect that I always hate is I go, well, if you want that kind of a book, like I have written books like that in all the ones I've written books that are less edgy
Hmm.
and that or stories or whatever that you're welcome to read. Like if you don't like this one, either try another one or, just move on to somebody else. That's fine. So personal taste, I kind of feel like those reviewers are like, you didn't like it not because of the writing or because of the quality or anything like that, but because of your personal taste. If I get a 3-star review for that, it's not really a big deal.
Hmm.
But the aspect that like Michael Brent Collins was talking about is actually really good. First of all, they took the time to read your book and they left you a review,
Hmm.
a 1-star review. Okay, well, they took the time. I'm like, that means you read the book, right? Hey,
Right.
that's
Hmm.
all right. The other part of that is that you've reached enough people that
You say this.
you've reached somebody that finally didn't like your book.
Hmm.
So, but I mean, and all these things are really easy to say. When you read that 1-star review, sometimes you just go, like, what? Like, what could I have done better? What the heck? What in the world? What could I have done better? And you're rehashing in your head. How would I have done this differently? Yada, 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 right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it does make it challenging.
Right.
But at the same time, if you can back up and look at that from a more universal thing of, hey, this actually is a good book. Other people really like it. This person just doesn't, it's not to their taste. Then or I finally reached enough people that somebody found my book in the wrong category or whatever and gave it a 1-star review because they don't like it. Okay, well, who cares?
Right.
Kind of.
Right.
Like, not everyone's going to like your book. So just know that at the outset. Not everybody's going to like your stuff. Not everybody's going to like your book. It's not going to be to everyone's taste. And you're going to have moments that are less than ideal.
Right.
Okay. You know, yeah. But anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I like that. I like that advice. So my next negative review is actually on one of a book that's highly rated, very highly rated. I think this is the only 1-star review he's gotten. Yes, it's the only 1-star. And for a first book, that's pretty good. You know what I mean? He's
Hmm.
got about a 71% 5-star, 18% 4-star, and he's got like 8% 3-star. So he's not doing terrible. So he's a 4.5 out of 5 for a first book, debut author. He's
Hmm.
right now
Oh,
he's
yeah.
got,
That's
yeah,
good.
he's got a three book series out right now. And um anyway, like I said, this book was pretty good. Had some quirky issues. As an editor, I will say, I wish that I could go back and re-edit every book that I edited earlier on in my business, because there are many books where I'm like, oh, I do things nowadays where I'd catch more, or I'd find
Hmm.
stuff better, or I would help authors better. I found my voice a little bit more as I got a little more bold and more, I guess bold, I guess is the word, but it's really kind of, I'm a little bit more harsh in my critics and my critiques to make
Hmm.
sure that my authors are a little, they're going to be stronger when they come out. So earlier on, I was a little more gentle. But in this case, this was not even a review that had anything to do with me or my edits, which was, thank heavens. But it was funny because it did hit my ego a little bit. The review is 1 star. It's really bad. It says this book combines Lord of the Rings with Marvel and borderline plagiarism, spelled PLAYGRSM. In other words, plagiarism, which is not how you spell plagiarism. Plagiarism. They publish anything nowadays to make a buck.
Oh my goodness.
That's the end of it. First of all,
Oh,
the book, he follows the hero's journey like almost every great book does, but he doesn't have anything Lord of the Rings in the book. Actually, it's Norse mythology. It's about a berserker who gains his power.
oh,
Yeah,
I
I
know
think
which
you
book
read,
this is.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
did
yeah.
book 3. So
I
book
did book
1,
three. Yeah,
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 you
yeah.
helped me with book 3. So
So
book
yeah, not
1,
Lord of the Rings like.
not at
Not at
all.
all.
He was, but
That's
because,
okay.
yeah,
All
so
right.
I think the guy maybe had just watched the movies, understood the elves, and thought maybe elves were only reserved for Tolkien, not understanding that the elvish world actually extends into Norse mythology. Um, yeah, so he had no idea about
Hmm.
Alfheim and any of these other places. So it's just, you could tell because he didn't understand Norse mythology. He was basically saying that it was Lord of the Rings meets Marvel, and I'm like, okay, you didn't study in school. So I was like laughing,
Well,
because he thought Thor was Marvel, not understanding Thor is actually Norse
yeah,
mythology.
that Marvel
um
stole Thor.
yeah, right,
Yeah,
yeah,
later on.
nothing,
Yeah, yeah,
nothing
exactly.
like that. So it
Um,
was pretty funny. But when you get a review like this that's like attacking your very premise, like, how, as you an author, I mean, how do you respond to that? Because like, how do you respond to
well,
something like that?
so the first thing is, first of all, I don't respond to it because
What I said.
first of all, most of the time I don't respond to reviews at all, good or
Okay.
bad. And
Okay.
and the reason is that, well, while it would be nice to go in and thank every reviewer, you get to
Mm-hmm.
the point where you got a couple hundred reviews on your book, and now you're writing thank yous to reviews instead of writing the next book.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get a whole bunch of
Exactly.
books, you're like, man, I just see my review count sometimes just go up, especially since Amazon changed it where they have the ratings too,
Yeah.
and then the actual reviews. And so I'm not going to go through there and see who actually reviewed everything and exactly what they said. Now, when you're a new author and you're on your first book or in your first books of a series, sometimes you can go in those reviews and pick out things that people saw that they either wanted more of or they wanted less of, and you
Yeah.
can change the way you write your next book.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not necessarily a bad thing, but for most of the time, I'm not going to go into something like that. And then if it's something like that where clearly you didn't understand the premise, I know that my premise was good,
Mm-hmm.
right? I know that I was solid. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, no, I'm not going to go in there and try to fix someone's perception of my book.
Of your
Like
book,
that's
right?
not my job,
Right.
really,
Right.
to do that. So I'm not going to do that because I can't go to every person and explain it. So if you didn't understand Norse mythology at the front of the book and you didn't bother to go and do any research, but you read the whole book, so you thought that
Yeah.
Thor was Marvel and that elves were from Lord of the Rings, then hey, thanks for first of all giving me your money and reading
Right.
my book. Um, but also the fact is the story, whether you felt like it was borrowed from someone or not, was enough to hold you through the whole book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, like, just okay, then that's fine. Great, awesome. Because so anyway, so I wouldn't respond to something like that, but I'd also just understand when you get a review like that, take it with a grain of salt.
Right.
Those who understand and know your universe and know your book are going to thoroughly enjoy it, and those who don't. Now, if a Norse mythology professor from some
Right.
university
That would be
is
harsh.
giving you feedback about
Uh-huh.
something that you messed up, first of all,
That would
you
be
have to go,
harsh.
okay, slow down. first of all, this is fiction, and so is Norse mythology in general.
in
So I think we
general.
can interpret it a little bit differently if that's,
Yeah.
if that's all fine with you.
But I
Um,
almost feel like I would be like, can I pick your brain?
yeah, I
Can
mean,
we talk?
someone like that, I'd be like, maybe we should chat,
Yeah.
right? Because
Right.
maybe I can learn something from you. So, anyway, so there's those type of opportunities as well. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the biggest thing is just don't pay attention to reviews that are that off base. I mean, if
Yeah.
something is on target, you can determine what you want to do about that. Now, what I would say is don't go back and revise that book based on a couple reviews,
Oh, yeah. Please don't. Please
because
don't.
that's the danger of, like, there's a couple of things in my older books that I do not like. And there's one series that I am revising and bringing it
Mm-hmm.
back out, but there's other reasons for that. But the reasons are not because of reviews. The reason is
Mm-hmm.
because I know why that series did not do as well as it could have, and I really want to do something cool with it. I think it's a cool series,
Right.
but I wrote it with another author. There were problems with some of the editing and some of the manuscripts and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
hey, that's something we can fix, right? And
Mm-hmm.
revitalize that series. But it's not because somebody left me a couple bad reviews. It's because I go, okay, this just has more potential, right? But don't go
Right.
back and write a review, uh, rewrite a book because somebody left you a poor review.
Right.
Just deal with
Right.
that and move on. But you
Mm-hmm.
can learn and improve your writing going forward. You can say, well, okay, maybe I did lean too much on Marvel's version of Thor, and maybe in my next book I can change that a little bit.
Right.
But yeah,
Right.
most of the time when they're way off like that, there's no need to pay that much attention to them. They're really not that
I
important, and they're not giving you valuable feedback.
I
So it doesn't
almost feel
matter.
like I almost feel like too, you should take those reviews and weigh them against all the other reviews too. Like kind of just
hmm
like, wait a minute. So does this make sense with in light of the other
Well, yeah,
reviews?
so here's the other thing. If you have 10 people that say, "Oh yeah, this was just Lord of the Rings and Marvel combined," and you have 10 reviewers out of, 50 reviews that say that,
Mm-hmm.
well, maybe they have a point. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, this is kind of like when if you're a member of a critique group as a writer, right? And you take something to your critique group and they look at it, and one person, that one particular person that always has an issue with this particular type of dialogue tells you something about that dialogue, you can decide whether you want to fix that or not, or whether it even needs fixing. However, if four people in your critique group say the exact same thing, they may not know the way to fix it, they may not know the solution, but it tells you to look at that section of your manuscript because there's a problem. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're getting that feedback constantly on your books, you might want to look at your series and go, okay, maybe I need to change this up a little bit because maybe I am following this a little too closely or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, eh,
Yeah.
just don't worry about it. You know,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. That's awesome. So let's talk then a little bit about oh gosh, I was
Let's
gonna
talk
throw
about
out
trolls.
I was going to talk about trolls, but one of the things I was going to check is just because I know Michael Brent personally, and he wouldn't get mad at me for digging through his reviews. He'd probably find it flattering. But one of the things that I was going to look at is the deep, because that's one of my favorites of his. And he's got over 1,000 reviews on that. He's got 1.6 on Strangers. The Loon is up to 1.4. I mean, granted, these have been out for a little while, but
hmm
which you know what I find absolutely fascinating about this. I mean, kind of as a side note, Stacey kind of going off on the deep end here a little bit, but his books that he's published with Shadow Mountain Press, this man just, I mean, keep in mind, this man has been around for a while, self-published. Usually he has his own fan base, like he has a pretty solid fan
hmm
base. Um, his book one of this book series that he's writing for Shadow Mountain called Grimworld, which I highly recommend. It was a great story.
hmm
I think it's middle grade.
Middle grade fantasy.
I think he's calling it fantasy thriller. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
but anyway, he's had 97 reviews on it. And
Hmm.
then his new one that just released, I think like a couple months ago, he's had 21. What's fascinating to me about this is that this man has a solid fan base. And he's with a traditional publisher now. And I've seen this man get more reviews faster with his own stuff than with this traditionally published book.
There is a
I
caveat,
recognize
though.
I recognize there's a few, like you said, variables, caveats, one of which is the audience. I get it. It's a totally
Yes,
different genre,
because it's a completely different genre. When
totally different.
you swap genres,
Yeah.
you're going to dip in reviews, maybe not in
Mm-hmm.
sales because of the publisher that he's with, and he has ins to schools and libraries and stuff like that. But you're going to get fewer reviews simply because that review list that he has built is really for his horror
For
stuff.
his horror story.
Um,
I
but anyway,
also, but when he switched over to cowboy romance for a while, he's done that with
mhm,
his pen name.
with his pen name.
He did pretty good. In fact, I'm gonna just
Yeah, he had a pretty
check.
good following with under that pen name as well.
I think it
So,
actually picked up his horror series as well. I think it was one of those things that
mhm.
it like,
Well,
which
what's
is funny.
interesting is there are some interesting crossovers
Ouch.
between genres. The difference is when you go to middle grade, you're really speaking to a completely different audience
Right.
because although I do like some middle grade fiction, I do not seek it out. I am
Yeah.
primarily an adult fiction reader.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I love his stuff and I read that first book, like I probably won't read more in the series. I'm not a super fantasy fan.
Mm-hmm.
And the middle grade aspect of it really wasn't that appealing to me.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it was good, like I probably won't read more of it, even though I
Right.
will read his other stuff,
Right.
right? But
Mm-hmm.
anyway,
Well, okay,
so
that's a good thing to bring up then, because I have a few authors that have done a really good job pushing those reviews and getting the reviews. Some I think that they didn't lean on it as much and they didn't see the sales success that they probably should have, considering the books that they have written, which are pretty
mhm.
well written. Um, when they don't get those reviews at all, they get really discouraged. There's a strategy to getting reviews. Am I right?
Yeah, there's a and that's probably another topic for another day, but there's a strategy for getting reviews and especially targeted reviews. In other
Right.
words, what I want really is I want reviews from people who read my genre.
Right.
And part of the reason for that is you're also bought on Amazon. And that's a whole other topic as well, because you can really screw those up by writing in another genre and then having crossover readers from that genre. And this is also the danger of switching from like something like adult horror to middle grade is
Mm-hmm.
because like I know a gal who writes like she writes clean romance for Harlequin in one of their series, and it is closed door, very clean romance,
I
right?
think I
And
know
she
who you're
has a
I met who you're
big,
talking about, right?
yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
she has a big following for that.
Mm-hmm.
She writes steamy romance under a pen name.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Well, because you don't want crossover. You don't want those old ladies buying her Harlequin romances in Walmart
Yeah.
to find um I am the plumber. I am here to fix your pipes. No. I mean, you just don't want that. That's not a crossover audience that
Right.
you want to have, right? I
Right.
don't want to write, if I write steamy romance, right? It would be
Mm-hmm.
under a pen name because
Mm-hmm.
I don't want my mystery and thriller guys picking it up and going, he put what? I mean, I
Or
don't,
it's
that's,
how big? That doesn't
yeah,
make sense.
that makes no sense at all.
Sense at all.
So you know what I
By
mean?
the
I
way,
mean,
I'm
so
not drinking. This is IBC, just FYI.
mhm, yeah, uh-huh. Anyway, but but you know what I mean? So there's a certain amount of strategy that goes into that. And this
Right.
is so if you do a crossover to another genre, you can probably expect to get some bad reviews on
Okay.
one or the other of those genres by people who are confused by your brand.
Gotcha.
because they're like, I came here expecting romance, and all of a sudden she wrote a slasher serial killer horror, and I'm like, crap, I was hoping for some romance here, and I'm not finding it, right?
Right.
I understand he loves to kill, but that's not the same. So, you know what I mean? So it's just um, so you can expect that as well. I mean, reviews, it's fascinating, but reviews often are not about your writing or the story or the book. There a lot of
Right.
times they're about something else entirely. They're about the person and their reaction to things, or they're about they were confused about the genre by maybe by your cover, and maybe in that case that means you need to change your cover, but
Right.
there's things that you need to do to ensure that your genre is reaching the right that your book is reaching the right readers who read in that genre and that subgenre,
Right.
so that you don't get them disappointed. It's like the thing we always talk about: I ordered a hamburger, you brought me a pizza. It's a good pizza, but it's not what I ordered. I ordered a hamburger, right?
Exactly.
So that type of thing, that can get you some negative reviews too, that aren't really, there's really nothing you can do about them. It's not your fault, but it's just, oops, something happened.
Yeah, something
So,
happens. But it is helpful to it is helpful to have the right attitude when you're going
hmm
about one acquiring those reviews, and two when you receive them. And
hmm
yeah, there is some tough skin involved there, but I would also challenge you to also take the constructive useful criticism and then leave the bad that
just
is
toss the
completely
rest.
useless. So trolls in general, trolls are basically, if you're new to the internet, trolls are people who are basically write just horrible, nasty things because they have nothing better to do. These are the same people that you'll see in the parking lot who'll leave a note on your car because you're parked in their usual spot, or maybe that they want to be the first one in line for their coffee that morning and you beat them to it and they're very angry about it. For whatever reason, they're very angry in life as a whole, and they just look for a way to poke bears. Um, Most of the time, karma gets them in the butt, and that's why I usually take great pleasure in just watching them
hmm
kind of like fall apart into into their own little fit. But just so you know, it can get really hurtful. There is a guy that I absolutely love. He is a fabulous human. It has nothing book related. And one of these days, if he wants to write a book, I hope he looks me up because I would love to write it with him. Um, but his name is Scott, and he is really, really fun. And I won't drop his last name, or his handle, but I don't want to get people over there that
Don't
hate
want
him.
any
But
trolls.
yeah, I don't
Or
want any
yeah,
trolls.
don't need
But
trolls finding. Yeah.
he's an amazing human, and one of the things that I love about him is he'll find those rando videos or people send him things that are really funny, and he'll do reactions to them. And most of the time, the reactions are to the comment section, which is can be like where you find a lot of trolls, right? You'll find
hmm
a lot of trolls in these
Oh yeah.
comment sections. And but he'll read the comment sections and just lose his mind. And watching him laugh at this is one of his things. Well, one day somebody got mad at him. Somebody said that they didn't like him. And then somebody watched her video who said that she didn't like him. And he went and he picked a fight with him on his comment
Oh
section in one of his videos. Lovely. Wasn't even somebody who'd ever seen or followed him before, just third person
yeah.
third
Third
person
party.
trolling.
Somebody told
Trolling, yeah.
somebody who told somebody that
Right. Who,
you're
by the
not a good
way,
guy.
probably has no personal relationship with any of these people at all, right? Like this is
hmm
like I don't even understand where people
The
get.
curse of the internet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
'cause I
just
have
so
an
bad.
example. I'll give you in a little bit, but
Yeah,
yeah,
no, give it
it's
to me. Well, anyway, he just responded the other day to this, and he handled it really well, but he basically said that he's not gonna respond. He did respond to the guy basically and said, "Well, how many chins do you have under that beard?" And
hmm
and the guy, of course, through this fit, now he's getting a lot of trolls who are saying, like, we're going to come kill you and all this crap because he just hit back. And the guy that hit my when my kids pick on me, I'm always be careful. If you dish it, you got to be able to take it. If you're going to dish it
Hmm.
out, you got to be able to take it. And that's kind of the same thing. The problem with the internet and getting reviews that are sometimes just trollish in nature, you have to understand that a lot of times the anonymity that comes behind being able to just write something or say something on the internet, and you feel like there's this distance. Ultimately, these people that are doing this have no life. I can't imagine they have any
Hmm.
other thing to do in their life, because really, I mean, I don't go to a restaurant and think, well, that was a really crappy cheeseburger. I'm going to go write a 15-page letter about how that cheeseburger ruined my day. I mean, if I had a crappy cheeseburger, I leave and I'm like, well, I'm not going to go eat there again, and I don't bother. I've got better things to do. So when people leave you stuff that's trollish, unless it's constructive in nature, like Troy and I have said, leave it, because it really is just proving that somebody like literally had nothing better to do than to be a jerk.
Hmm. Yeah, and there's something on social media called the delete and block button. Okay, and
Yes.
don't first of all, don't be afraid to use that. There's some people who have told me, "Oh, I'm afraid. What if I do that?" And then they just appear under a different username
Mhm.
or whatever. Well, hey, if they're going to go to that much effort to do something like that, let them.
Right.
Okay, let them. But especially if you leave things like that, like if you're running Facebook ads and you get a troll that's commenting on your Facebook ads, that can be really damaging and it can hurt your reach and it literally costs you money,
Mm-hmm.
right? So don't be afraid to delete and block or even stop that ad, start a completely new campaign, and just leave it. Now, if that person finds you again and becomes extremely harassing, you can block them from your page, block them from seeing your stuff, and
Right.
contact Facebook and all that stuff if you need to do something like that. But for the most part, in social media and online, like there is a scanner page for like the valley that I live in. And basically, so if something's happening, the cops, whatever,
Mm.
fire, whatever's happening, somebody's listening to the scanner and kind of reporting in this group. So if you think, oh man, I don't want to listen to a scanner all day, but hey, sirens just went off by my house, or I'm driving somewhere, I want to see whether there's a wreck in the way or whatever, you can do it. But the comments on those are incredible. Rather than asking about the accident or trying to figure out something, the people are commenting, every driver in this valley, except for me, is bad. They're all on their phones. They're distracted. They should go to jail. I think we should have the death penalty for people that hit bicyclists and, stuff like that, right? And it's 100% trollish behavior because it's completely off topic. Like,
Yeah.
okay, somebody had an accident. You don't know why. All you do is see the cars, but you're like, I bet they were on their phone. I bet you they were
Oh, I bet they
distracted.
were drinking.
I
Look,
bet
he's
they were
driving a
drinking, and it's only
Ford.
3 in the afternoon, and all that stuff. And it's just trollish comments, filled with trollish comments by people who have nothing else to do but get onto Facebook and complain about other drivers and complain about traffic and complain about everything about their life, right?
Hmm.
Apparently they have, like Stacey said, they have nothing to do, or they're just, who knows, right?
Who
Who knows
knows?
what their issue is. As writers, you will get them that will comment on your ads. They've never even read a book that you've written. They're just commenting on the ad.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's,
That's
or
impressive.
they will just come and comment on your author page for no reason. And heaven forbid you should say anything of political or religious nature, because you will get a whole flood of people that are just have nothing better to do but to comment upon your life and all of your life choices and condemn you and all that kind of stuff. Here's the deal. Just, I mean, honestly, first of all, just let them, and again, delete and block, right?
Right.
Just get rid of those people in your life. Okay,
Right.
that's revealing. You get a troll on your page on something that you said, it might just be a hint that that person doesn't necessarily need to be on your friends list anymore, and move on. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, so trolls, I mean, but it can be annoying. I mean, some of these people they post comment after comment after comment and page after page after page of stuff and they'll write a 2-page response to something that you put on the internet that was 3 sentences long or whatever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you just, first of all, don't get in an argument with them if
Mm-hmm.
they're trolls like that, because nothing you say is going to change their mind or improve their opinion of you. They've already set it in their head. This is what they think. This is what they're going to do. So just don't even bother. Don't bother to
Mm-hmm.
respond. And if you do respond, just understand the can of worms you may be opening. Now, there are some things like, especially if you are a female, there are some reasons when you may want to write under a pen name because you don't want people to be able to find your house. As a thriller writer, I don't get a lot of trolls that threaten to come to my house and kill me because
Mm-hmm.
they realize I know how to kill them back. And I know how to bury bodies and get rid of them because of the type of fiction that I write. So they don't just show up at my house and be like, hey, and I'd be like, oh, well, let's just come in, have some Kool-Aid, let's talk about it. That funny
Right.
aftertaste doesn't mean a thing. But anyway, so you know, but I mean, so we don't, guys get less of it. Thriller and mystery authors get even less just because of
Right.
the nature of what we do, right? If you're
Right.
a woman writing romance, you may get guys that do all kinds of things in your direct messages or whatever. Just block those guys
Just
and get
block
rid of
them.
it.
Yeah.
But if it seems like it is going beyond just online harassment and may turn into something else, contact your local authorities. Don't consider it to be any kind of a joke.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean,
these guys can
anytime
get crazy, and things have happened that are really bad.
I've had
And
some
I don't want to
friends,
scare anybody, but at the same time, I want to say trolls can turn into real life
stalkers and
stalkers.
then problems. Yeah.
And if something like that happens, you report it to your local police department or whoever,
Right.
and you get someone else involved
I agree. I
because,
agree.
you know,
I've had some friends, it's so random and weird because they're not even well known. They haven't done anything, but it's just stalkers are weird. They get hyper fixated on people, and
hmm
trolls are no different. The internet kind of opens you up, and especially when you are creating yourself and this persona that's kind of public, an author persona. That's
hmm
why I always tell my authors, be careful how public you are with your identity as a personal person, and how much you share on your public profile as an author, as opposed to keeping things private and personal for your family and friends. Don't make
hmm
them one and the same, because that author persona, it's it's very much like this. I'll tell this funny story. It's kind of funny. My niece is super cute. Not really, but she was when she was little. Um, and she was very in love with Justin Bieber, as was almost every single girl her age at the time. And it got to be a little bit disturbing at one point, because one day we went over to her house and I was cleaning up something from my mom. My mom was raising her at the time, and this little girl, who was probably maybe 15 or 16 at the time, and kind of a big girl, like in terms of like her size. So she could have, one good hit, she would have maybe knocked me to the ground, maybe. But once I got up, I would have
Yeah,
killed her.
probably Justin
Um,
Bieber too. She probably
yeah,
could have
but she was,
easily,
yeah, she
yeah.
wasn't a she wasn't a delicate flower. But she got really angry with us because my kids made a comment about Justin Bieber, and she said, "Hey, watch what you say about my boyfriend." And we kind of looked at her and we're like, sweetie, he's not your boyfriend." And she had it in her head, at least somewhat delusional, possibly. I mean, I don't know. I had a crush on Joey McIntyre when I was a kid, but I don't think I ever took it to this degree. She thought that she was going to marry Justin Bieber, and we shouldn't say anything. Oh, I know what it was. It was when he was with Selena Gomez, and the girls mentioned that Selena and him were just at the beach or something. Like there was some photos, and she was furious. She was like, no, he is not with Selena Gomez. Like she was like furious. I'm gonna marry Justin Bieber. And we were like, are you smoking crack? Like, what is the
You
matter with you?
okay?
Well, that's the thing. I think that some people, and it's since been that this girl is clearly she's got bipolar disorder. Like there's issues. She's but anyway, but she's mentally ill enough that if she had continued to go down or hyperfixate on Justin Bieber, she could have been a stalker. You know what I mean? Had she known
Hmm.
how to turn on the computer, like it could have been a problem for her if she'd learned how to
Hmm.
track him down in some way. So that's why keeping your public persona separate from your personal persona is so important, because you don't know who's looking at you. I mean,
Right. Well,
it's
yeah,
weird. It's just weird out there, guys. It's just weird.
it is weird out there, and there are definite things out there. I mean, I have had female stalkers who were a little wacky, and
Really?
yeah,
Tell
and
me. Just kidding.
no, no.
Oh, come
But
on,
and
Troy.
times when you have to draw the line, like a borderline between, I mean, I had people when I was with Plotter, I had people find my personal Facebook and message me about things related to Plotter, like
Yeah.
more than one, right?
Hmm.
And which is borderline not okay. Like I would tell
Right.
them, hey, this is not how you reach out about this problem,
Right. Right.
right? That you don't come to my personal page and do that. And I had to do it very delicately because I'm not wanting to just shut them off entirely, but at the same
Right.
time, I'm like, hey, this is my personal page. And so your messages about that are not something that I appreciate. While I want to help you and I want to be kind, I also really don't want, that's not really the way things should work.
That's a
But
good
anyway, so you
idea.
have to
Yeah.
be,
So
yeah, you have to be careful about
putting up
that,
those
of putting, and just saying, if
boundaries.
somebody messages you inappropriately on your personal page, and ladies, you may get this more than guys do, then just be sure that you kind of shut that down. Like just go, okay, this is my personal page. Even if for whatever reason, anyway, just shut them down. Don't let them become a part of your personal life. It can be hard because some people can be flattering, and it can be difficult to just tell them, hey, no,
Hmm.
like, no, this isn't appropriate. This isn't a place for you to hang out. And I'm not going to chat with you, and I'm not going to give you my phone number so you can text me and, that type of thing.
Right.
And you'll get people that will try to cross that line. Hey, man,
Right.
just give me your phone number. I'll shoot you a text. No,
Right.
you're not just going to shoot me a text. Even authors that I work with, like there are a few authors I work with that have my phone number. The rest of them do not, right? Because I'm not available to you by telephone. I
Right.
have Zoom and I have email and I have a calendar and all those different ways for you to contact me. And the reason
Hmm.
is really, first of all, I'm not very good at work-life balance anyway. So,
Yeah.
it's not really helpful. But either way, no matter what you're doing, just understand you have your personal space and your professional space, especially as an author, and keep those two things distinctly separate. Like I say, if you have to, use a pen name, even if it's just a small variation of your name or whatever. And don't put your location, like your too exact of a location in your bio. I know romance authors, female authors who have put false locations in their bios on purpose to throw people off. So they'll go to Colorado looking for them and won't find them because that's not where they live.
Got it.
Things like that.
Yeah. Get things like that. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Yeah, so trolls. I will say this too. Yeah, and just like Troy said, that like negative feedback, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Like you're gonna get weirdos. And then, like you said, sometimes it's just not in your taste. And honestly, in a lot of ways, if you're getting good negative feedback, and they're kind enough to write something about it that might be somewhat descriptive of why it didn't fit in their likes or their taste, consider it a bonus. A lot of times if somebody's just dropping a 1 star and not giving you any reasons, that's not helpful to you. So it's really more helpful to get people who drop a reason. But I will say, sometimes negative, like Troy said, negative feedback, especially if you're getting some consistent negative feedback, those are the moments when you should pause and you should consider those and use them as you're working on your career and to improve. And the reason I bring that up is
Mm.
because I have, and if you don't see well, I'll get into this. I'll get into that comment here in a
Yeah.
second. First I'll hit this. If you see negative feedback and you're aware, self-aware enough to recognize that this is something you can work on, um, then then be considerate of those people that wrote you the review and maybe even say, thanks so much. I'm going to take that into consideration and probably use that in my next book. It will turn a non-fan into a fan. I will guarantee it. At least they're going to
Hmm.
buy the next book. Because
Absolutely.
they're going to want to see if you actually took their comment into consideration. But there are times where I've seen some negative feedback and it's given me a degree of satisfaction. So when I get negative feedback, before I get into this, when I get negative feedback, I will say I get a little crushed. I have a very soft ego. And for an editor, that's kind of weird. And it's kind of an oxymoron because I'm very selective about what kind of feedback bothers me. I don't
Yeah.
know why, but like sometimes when I'm like, I could give a crap what you think, but then there's sometimes where I'm like, oh, that hurt. Um, but this particular comment that was made on a book that I edited was so good. It was so good. And I took a screenshot of it because I knew the author and I knew he'd delete it. And it is so
Hmm.
good. I want to read it because it's probably one of my favorite negative reviews. I think I put it in my like bad examples file. I have a bad examples file. That's right, folks. I do. Um, but it is so funny. So I'm gonna read this to you. It says 1 star. I mean, if there was a 0 star, I
Yeah.
think he
One
would have given
star.
it. Not good at all. Be in. Oh, that's the title. I'm not going to read the title of the book. Clearly, clearly, the author is just breathing. I listened to the audio version, unfortunately. I gave this the benefit of the doubt. Uninteresting. Wondering words and when will this be over vibes. the,
Oh,
the cover
but you
has
read
a
it.
oh well, he listened to it. The cover has a famous horror author, movie director, writer quote, which says, quote, reaches past the conventions of commonplace, unquote. I do not think this was intended as a compliment, just like the other quotes from various names in the description. Almost the equivalent of saying, well, that's different. The only other review I will assume is from the author. Hope this doesn't cripple sales. It wouldn't because there aren't
Okay.
any. But he says, but then again,
Yeah.
the guy from the RoboCop commercials would not buy this for $1.
Oh my God.
It was one of the worst reviews, but made me so heart happy. The reason this made me happy is because this is on a book that I consistently and constantly told the author, you have to fix this. You have to fix this. It's all
Hmm.
bad. Every review he had on his book, which I'm saying every review, I think he had 3 at one point on this book. And like I said, he uses the same reviews on all 3 of his books. And I will say, I've done 3 of his books and they're all awful. They're all awful.
Oh no.
The editing on them is awful. Everything's awful. It's all bad. But this particular book this book, like it literally gave me nightmares and not in the good way. Like, cause I'm a horror fan. but it was because there were parts of the book that he, as an egomaniac, and that's, I'm going to say that word instead of the other one that I think we're all going to know and love, he absolutely refused to take it out of the book. And so these were,
Hmm.
and there were a lot of like editorial changes that I told him to make that he did not did not take. And so, and I know that I told him to take because I keep every version of my book, every single
Hmm.
revision that I do. So I can see the revision process and I can go back and I can say, okay, did I tell him to fix that before? And I can see that I did. So anyway, things like that. Well, here's the thing. This review got deleted. Like he went in there and he deleted it. As soon as he saw it, he
Hmm.
deleted it. Luckily, like I said, I got the screenshot before it went away. Um, but the thing that where I'm going with this is just this is another example of like when you're self-aware, if you've got critiques from an editor and or beta readers and you've just gone ahead and pushed on thinking, well, this is my creative masterpiece, this is my magnum opus, like it doesn't matter, somebody out there was going to like this, but you're not getting any feedback that says that you are agreed with, then maybe
Hmm.
you should shift.
Maybe
Maybe
you're
you
not.
should pivot. Right. Um, and this guy loved throwing, I even wrote a blog about it called Art for Art's Sake, because he used to throw that at me all the time. And I couldn't understand why this guy couldn't understand the principle of you can sell a banana strapped to the wall. If you guys saw my social media post a couple of
Hmm.
weeks ago, you can sell a banana strapped to the wall, but the only person that's really, I mean, like the person that buys it is an idiot because honestly, like it's garbage. Anybody can strap a banana to the wall and like it's not art. It's not art. Um, but he had this idea that if it's just it's art for the art's sake, but that actually is not what
Mm.
he thought it meant. And in my blog you'll see it was kind of a movement kind of during the revolution, like the
Hmm.
Renaissance age and everything. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is like please be self-aware. Don't get locked into your own world enough. I mean, and this particular human, I doubt he ever will come out of his fog because he's clinically diagnosed. Like there's he's got things wrong with him and he there's no reason or why, like he's ever going to notice this. Um or notice that he needs to change or shift or whatever. He and I eventually broke ties. I worked with him for like 6 years. I love the guy actually. He was a really fun, charismatic dude but had a lot of problems. And then when he and I had a creative clashing with a client, it all fell apart. And it was literally because he didn't want me to change his masterpiece or what he envisioned. But the problem is that the author in the process was falling apart like mentally. They were like they thought that they were going to have to
Hmm.
trash the whole project. So luckily we saved it and that book is doing really really well now, but this particular human, he was so wrapped up in his own head he wasn't willing to understand there's things that I can learn
Hmm.
to be better. I want everyone coming who's made it through this long in the video to understand and realize that when you get a critique that you should be self-aware to know and discern whether that is something that you can use as constructive criticism or not. um
Hmm.
don't you know I guess what do
Yeah.
you have to add about that, because I mean it's
Well,
like
all I'll add about that is one way to avoid bad reviews is to have a good editor.
yeah.
And this is I had this discussion with a client this week that was like that somewhat resistant
Mm-hmm.
to some of my methods of editing.
Mm-hmm.
But I simply said, as I often say to people, is it's better to get that feedback from me than a review on Amazon,
Right.
right? It's better to go through and nitpick your edits now than to get that review on Amazon. And the reason I do things the way I do them is because I've been doing them for years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like you, I'd love to go back and some of the books that I edited first, I'd love to
Early,
redo
yeah. I'd
them,
love to redo them.
re-edit them.
Some of
Just like
them.
I'd love to rewrite some of the books that I,
Mm-hmm.
started out with. But I can't do that. But what I can do is take that knowledge that I've gained so far and the knowledge that I'm constantly immersed in studying story and story structure. Just had a call earlier today with a gal talking about story structure, right? And the reason for it is because I really do care about your manuscript and I want you to succeed. And I
Right.
don't want you to get a bunch of negative reviews on Amazon.
Right.
Right. So, a way to avoid some of this, you're not going to avoid all of it
No.
ever. But understand that harsh feedback from an editor is much better than harsh feedback from a reviewer. It has
Right.
it because it can have a positive impact on your sales instead of a negative impact on your sales. So don't hesitate to to use a good editor and to take that feedback and take it for what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the feedback that you're going to get on Amazon and other places is going to be worse and hurt you in way worse ways. So,
Right,
yeah.
right. And keep in mind, like if an editor, I mean, this is very true, like you said, Trey, early on, is that if an editor is going to not give a crap about your book, they're going to give you a short feedback and then that's it. But if you're getting
Hmm.
a 10, 15, my last one, 22-page review on your book, that is saying, I can see some potential here. Here are the things that you can do to work on this and to
Hmm.
make yourself better. I see you going somewhere with this idea, or you have some talent to develop here, something like that. And like you said, when I was conversing with you about that manuscript review and trying to figure out how to, delicately cross some of the unavoidable sticky things, just understanding that your editor, you're paying them for that critique and you're paying them
Hmm.
to hear that feedback. I have had authors tell me to take my review and stick it where the sun doesn't shine.
Oh yeah,
I've
me too.
on a handful, I think
Yeah.
I've had like three in particular that were like, I do not like your review. Completely understand. In fact, one of them I even kind of phoned it in, and it was because I was so behind. That was my bad. Like I was
Hmm.
way behind in work and I kind of just half-assed that whole thing, and it was a horrible thing. And I apologize, but of course he's not going to come back to me. Of course he's not, but and rightfully
Hmm.
so. But it was one of those situations where that was like my low point last year. It was one of those situations where I recognized I could change because he gave me that feedback. He was like, this is
Hmm.
awful. Like, I didn't, so of course I didn't give him my full price. I was like, we're done. Like, I'm going to refund you half the deposit. Like, this is
Hmm.
just not going to work. I am so sorry. This is my fault. But like I said, this is kind of one of those things where you kind of have to recognize and be self-aware when you're getting a negative review, and we get them as editors, trust me. When you get a negative review, you have to understand and know, okay, what do I do about this person to resolve this issue with them, and then how do I make this better going forward, and how do I become a
Yep.
better writer? How do I become a better writer? How do I improve what I'm doing? Because if you really 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 want to be a writer, you have to have a reason why, right, Troy? You've always said that this is one of the
Oh
hardest.
yeah.
There's much easier
Yeah.
ways to make money. So this
Yeah.
isn't, if you're here and if you've lasted through this podcast this long, there's a reason why you want to be a writer and you want to figure these review things out. Um, then if you really have that in you, then when you get negative feedback, take it and run with it and see what you can do to be better. Don't just be the mediocre
Hmm.
writer, be the best writer you can possibly be.
Yeah. For sure. If you can turn it around to a positive, turn it around to a positive. And if you can't,
Mhm.
if it's just somebody's taste or something else,
Or just a
just
troll.
ignore it and move
Just
on.
ignore it. Yeah,
Just ignore it and
exactly.
move on.
Exactly. So I got another funny review that I want to share that's kind of funny. It was on me personally, and I felt it was so out of nowhere, but it was crazy. It was from somebody that I'd never worked with. And the reason I'm going to bring this up is because it's one of the points that you and I talk about all the time, and that we need to be vigilant as business owners. I got a
Hmm.
negative Google review from somebody that never worked with me before. And they left a review and made a comment that I was like, who are you? Like, and I'm an editor. When we work with our authors, and even when I have multiple editors working on multiple projects, I know my authors. I know who's on board with me. I know who I'm working with, and I remember you from before. Now, will I remember your project? 5, 6 years down the road? Well, I've probably read about 400 more manuscripts since then, but I will probably remember you once we start talking about your story again. This particular person, nothing. Like, I was like complete blank. I was like, who is this person? So he left a negative review. I got on there and I'm like, I love that you contacted me. I am apologizing for your negative experience. I don't recall working with you. Can you, you know, give me some contact information or contact me on my email so I can, see about remedying this situation?
Making this right. Yeah, yeah.
Right, right. Never heard from the person again. So obviously it was a complete troll. The reason I'm bringing this up as a writer, because it's difficult for writers to know who's buying your book, right? Sometimes these people are going to say, yeah, I read this book and it was trash. How are you supposed to know if they buy the book from Amazon? You're not. You're not going to see those sales statistics. You don't know who you don't know who's buying your book. If
Oh,
Yeah, if you're running your business through your own website and you have direct sale links set up so that you are establishing and creating and curating and nurturing author reader relationships, you're going to have much better, more constructive, valuable reviews, and you're going to create those super fans that everybody wants. So
hmm.
while you might get some negative feedback on Amazon that you can't really mess with, it's always a really great idea to give that way, even though you're keeping your personal professional life separate. Create an outlet or a place where author or where readers can connect with you or feel like they can connect with you professionally.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I have had with direct sales, I had one gal that was like, I mean, it really was probably pretty much a troll moment where this
Probably.
person like clicked on one of my Facebook ads, got one of my books direct, which of course is an ebook, right? It was
Mm-hmm.
$6. It's an ebook. And
Mm-hmm.
she wrote me a nasty email that said, I should report you to the Better Business Bureau. I thought this was a print book. I don't even use the book funnel app. And I'm like, you don't even have to use the book funnel app, but hey, whatever. And I want my money back. And I'm like, okay. So I refunded her money. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, how in the world did you think I was going to ship you a book, physical book for $6 and make any money at all?
Right.
Like, it was a totally bizarre, like disconnected moment. So of course I interacted with the person, I gave their money back, that type of thing, which is kind of aggravating because people don't understand I pay the credit card fees already. So if I
Oh yeah.
refund your
So you're taking a
money,
hit.
I actually lose money by you
Mm-hmm.
asking for your money back for a digital book that you, but what I did do was make sure she hadn't actually downloaded it.
Oh
You
yeah,
can, if
good.
you're controlling your direct sales, you can manage that. So I made sure she didn't actually download it before I refunded the money and made sure that she could not download it any longer and deleted that email address from that capability and then removed her from any of my lists to make sure that she did not come back again
Right.
because obviously that's not the kind of person I want on my list is the person who's going to cost me money and threaten to report me to the Better Business Bureau for selling a digital book. But anyway, so
Crazy.
but yeah, it's just one of those things. But that kind of stuff happens. Okay, so just understand you're kind of
Mm-hmm.
in the customer service business. So even if you do direct sales, you're going to have those moments when you're going to have somebody that for whatever reason doesn't understand the way things work or whatever
Yeah.
and it's going to get very upset at you, which I thought her initial reaction was just so very over the top. Like all you had to do was say, hey man, I thought that was a physical book, I didn't know it was an ebook, can I
Mm.
have my money back? And I would have said sure. But when you're like, oh, I'm going to report you to the Better Business Bureau, this is fraud, all this other stuff, I'm like, I don't think it was fraud. I think it was pretty clear what's an ebook and what's a physical book, but I'm like, hey,
Right.
maybe I did screw it up. I went back, looked at my website. Let me make sure that it doesn't say a physical book here anymore. That type of thing. But yeah, just understand you're going to get that negative feedback kind of regardless. And it's some of those funny moments and those things like that. I mean, actually just turn into learning moments. Like you just go,
Right.
okay, well,
Exactly.
let
Exactly.
me just move
Exactly.
on because I learned something at least.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Exactly.
you know,
So, yeah. So anyway, so before we started this episode of Pros Talking Pros, I'm going to remind you to like, subscribe, like notify, because it helps us out with the algorithm, which right now is not being kind to us, but it's okay. It's probably because I'm not doing any kind of advertising anyway. But so if you found us in the algorithm and we're, and you've like us, please keep in touch with us. Write in the comments below something that you would like us to talk about. But one of the things that we were talking about doing for our next episode, and I'm going to go ahead and plug this a little bit, is we're going to talk about a little bit of a controversial topic, which will probably be instigating a few rants from Troy, if I can predict that well.
likely,
Yeah, but
likely.
we're going to talk about diversity and representation of cultural, cultural representation inside of novels and inside your books. We're going to talk about what that means, because sometimes people don't even know what that means, and if it's necessary, um, and or if you're going to do it, how to do it appropriately. So we're going to talk about that. That's going to be an interesting little topic. So join us next week for that. But thanks, Troy, for talking to me about this rando surprise topic. I thought it would be really funny if I could get you to like tell me some of your funny reviews. I
Oh,
thought it would be
yeah, I've
really
got some
funny.
good ones. One of them, oh yeah, one of them on one of my books said that it was a 3-star review and said that there were lots of words and pages. That was the complaint,
That's good.
um, which was fair because there were
Lots of
lots of
words.
words and lots of pages.
Mm-hmm.
So, fair. I'm glad you read it and enjoyed all the pages, and I'm not really sorry there were that many. I don't know what to
Yeah.
tell you. But
I
anyway,
don't know what to
yeah,
tell you. I was
yeah,
really funny. Back there, my Storm Beneath the Glass book. By the way, if you're into epic fantasy, I highly recommend that book. Not just
yeah,
because it's a book that
excellent.
it's so good.
So
Talk
good.
about hard work, and I can't wait till these men put out more. But anyway, it's not. I'm gonna have to call them and see how they're doing on their sales, but they don't have very many reviews just yet. So if you actually do get that book, read it, review it, please. It's an amazing book. But one of the things I love about that book in particular is then what they did in their marketing is they went and they got onto one of those review sites where they put out an early release or a pre-release of their book and
Hmm.
allowed people to review, right? And that's usually a paid thing. Like they paid, I can't remember how much they paid for that, but um they got some really great feedback. One of the feedbacks they got was, and for the 856 page word or an 856 page book, is I couldn't finish it. It was just too long. And I was like, yeah, yeah,
Well,
you're
yeah,
not going
that may be why it's taking them some time to get reviews.
to
It
some
takes some time
reviews.
to read that book.
Yeah. And there's
And
like
I
a
mean
lot of
that's
POVs,
not
but
saying
it's
anything
really
negative about
good.
it.
No,
You know,
it took me
epic
a long time to get through
fantasy.
it.
Yeah, epic fantasy is not my jam normally, but like this is actually a very good book. But it took me a significant amount of time, a lot longer than I thought, to read the book because there's just a lot of story
There's a
there.
lot
There's a
going
lot of
on.
words and pages,
Yes, it is.
way more
But
than was in my thriller. This guy was whining about. But anyway,
yeah,
um,
that's so funny.
but
I did,
yeah,
I
I
did,
mean, yeah.
I do like those reviews too, because it does make it kind of more, it just feels like a lighthearted jab. It's not so negative. It's
Well,
just
yeah, and
fun.
like you can use this is what's funny, and I meant to mention this earlier. So of course now we're wrapping up, and I'm going to mention it again.
Yeah. No, it's
But you
okay.
can use sometimes you can use 1-star reviews in your marketing.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like they'll point out something that's like, this was total space-time trash. Reminded me of Back to the Future combined with Star Wars. And I'm like, shoot, man, I'd take that. That sounds like a compliment. And
Yeah.
put it, put that in review. I've seen tons of people do that and put 1-star reviews that are just really funny like that, or kind of on point, and just put it in their marketing. Like, hey, man, check it out. Somebody's comparing this to Back to the Future meets Star Wars. Seems like a pretty good book to me. Let's do it.
Oh, I think
You
I
know?
came across a book the other day and it just came across my feed and I think I skimmed right over it. But it was about negative reviews and it made me so happy because I think she was just listing the negative reviews that she's gotten. And it was just like a, do you remember those slam books where you would just write things just
Hmm.
random? It was like kind of like a slam book of her negative reviews. And I loved it so much. I thought, oh my gosh, great concept where she was just, I'm going to take these and I'm going to put
Yeah.
them all in a place.
Put
And
them all in a book. Yeah,
mhm,
there was
it
once
was
upon a
good.
time, I should recover it and re-release it, where I'd just like had this book of all the emails that I got offering me money, or like the scam emails
The
that I
scam
had.
emails.
It was hilarious. It was
That's
so
good.
funny.
That is
All the
good.
millions I've never won. Just like,
All
yes,
the princes
I
you've
am
never helped.
yes, I'm telling you, yeah, that'd be the worst position to be in the world right now, is to be a Nigerian prince deliberately, seriously trying to give away money. There's no way you could get rid of it. Like, nobody would believe you.
You guys have to be careful. There's weirdness. And we should talk about like the
Hmm.
scam calls you can get as an author because I know you
We
get
should, and
those
scam calls and emails, we should
in
talk about
emails,
that, because the emails especially can be very, very clever.
and they play to
Um,
your ego, and they're really hard.
the call's a
Yeah.
little less so, but they play to your ego, and they try to get you to pay for things that you would never pay for, and things that are just
Hmm.
not real. And if you do the research, you can prove that they're not real, but what they're counting on is, I mean, and I heard somewhere, because email is so cheap to spend, like what you really need is one in every like 20,000 people to respond to your email, a scam email,
Hmm.
and you more than paid what you invested.
Well, everybody, thanks so much again for joining us today. Troy, the illustrious, Stacey, the mediocre. We are glad you are here, and we will talk to you again next week when we talk about diversity in writing. So we'll see you again next week. Bye,
All right,
everybody.
thanks everyone. See ya.